Risch. Your full statement will be included in the record, Mr. Secretary, and the floor is yours.
One of the biggest problems I had was the tremendous amount of cash that was given to the Iranians. There's no doubt in my mind that part of that cash wound up paying for the munitions that were dropped on Israel in recent days. There's no doubt in my mind that part of that cash was paid to arm the Houthis in order to continue their attacks against Saudi Arabia. There's no doubt in my mind that part of that cash was used to construct and deliver missiles into Lebanon that we all know are there and aimed at Israel. This business of just handing cash over to these people is a bad, bad deal. And also, it's something that this committee really needs to do.
Whether we like it or not, and we don't like it, Iran has been engaged in these activities, including support for Hamas, including support for other terror groups, including support for proxies, engaging in destabilizing activities across the board. It was doing that before the JCPOA. It continued to do that during the JCPOA, and it's gotten worse since we got out of the JCPOA.
Your full statement will be included in the record, Mr. Secretary, and the floor is yours.
We have the problem that its nuclear program, now that it is not abiding by the constraints of the JCPOA, is literally galloping forward. And we talked about that a few minutes ago. But the magnitude of their enrichment, enriching more at higher levels, is putting it in a position where the breakout time is inexorably getting down from a year to months to eventually weeks.
Talk with you again following this morning's appropriations.
What justification is there, something that is that significant? And again, you take a look at the State Department's own manuals in terms of how it defines a treaty. I think it's quite clear that the original JCPOA was a treaty. Don't you think any agreement that you enter into with Iran should be deemed a treaty and should be ratified in the United States Senate?
Senators, you know, numerous arms control and nonproliferation agreements reached by the United States were not treaties. And there are benefits, you're right, to enshrining something in a treaty. There are also downsides in terms of some of the constraints that it actually would place on us. It's also more complicated when you're dealing with a multi-party agreement, which was the case of the JCPOA. We had, of course, the European partners. We had the Russians, the Chinese, not to mention the Iranians. So looking at the history of arms control and nonproliferation agreements, looking at what would give us maximum flexibility, and this was the most effective way forward.
Okay.
The women leaders in Afghanistan are so worried about what's going to happen.
First, just with regard to the attack.
What's going to make us believe that, in fact, a return to compliance for compliance is going to produce anything stronger than what we had?
Two things, Mr. Chairman. First, compliance for compliance, if we get there, and that remains a big if, which we can come back to, it has to be a first step, not a last step. I agree with that. We have an immediate challenge, which is that, to your point, Iran's nuclear program is galloping forward. It is enriching at higher levels, 20%, even 60%. In small cases, it's using more advanced centrifuges. The breakout time that the agreement established, an agreement that on its terms was working, is verified by our intelligence folks as well as the international experts, pushed the breakout time to a year. We're now down, based on published reports, to a few months. If this continues, if they continue to enrich at the levels and in the ways that they're doing, it will get down eventually to a few weeks. So that is a concrete problem. We have an interest in putting that nuclear problem back in the box, because an Iran with a nuclear weapon or with the ability to produce fissile material on very short notice to get one is an Iran that's going to be an even worse actor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you and appreciate the work that you're leading and applaud